sectionalism? Why did America form into distinct regions? And how did this lead to a war? All that and more tonight on 6 Minutes.
Good night. I'm Tom Brokaw for 6 Minutes. Sectionalism, a key cause to the Civil War. But why? What is sectionalism? Sectionalism is the loyalty to one's own region over the loyalty to the country as a whole. In the United States, it describes the different lifestyles, economic systems, and social structures of the North, South, and West. But why did these divisions form? Geographically, the separation makes sense. The West is divided by the Mississippi River from the North and South. The North and South were divided between the states of Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Western Virginia by the Mason-Dixon line. It was originally just a surveyed line until it eventually became the boundary between the free labor of the North and the slave-owning South. So what are the differences between them? Let's find out. One of the issues that deeply divided the northern and southern states was the issue of tariffs. Now, a tariff is simply an import tax. As we recall, the South did not have a lot of manufacturing, so they relied on trade to get most of their manufacturing industrial products. Now let's use a simple example for how tariffs affected the South. Now let's say that apples don't grow in the South. They grow in the North and they grow in Europe. Now apples from the North cost $1 per pound. Apples from Europe cost 75 cents per pound. So obviously the Southerners would rather buy the apples from Europe because they're cheaper. Now, if an import tax, a tariff, were added to the European apples of 50 cents per pound, they would cost $1.25 per pound, forcing Southerners to buy the northern apples rather than the cheaper European ones. So, for this reason, Southerners really didn't like tariffs. They thought that tariffs were a way for the North to control the South economically.
The moneyed interest in this country is all in the North, so the wealth and power would inevitably be concentrated there in the federal government, to the expense of the South.
If that is the case, it is unavoidable if the Union is to be preserved.
I fear our revolution will have been in vain if a Virginia farmer is to be held in hock to a New York stock jobber, who in turn is in hock to a London banker.
The North developed industries as the basis of its economy. Slavery was abolished, so most common people worked for low wages in factories. Abolitionism began to rise in the North during this period. Now, to get a better look at the Northern perspective during this time period, we interview a Northern citizen. So I would like to welcome into our news desk, Naomi Wiseman. Now, hello, Naomi.
Good evening.
Now, you are here to provide the Northern perspective of sectionalism.
Indeed.
So what makes the North so much better than the South?
Well, Mr. Brokaw, I narrow it down to 3 things. First, we don't have any slavery. Second, we have better industry. And third, we're more educated, unlike those backwards hicks.
Whoa, so we see that the Northern perspective is going to be very different from that of the Southern one. So, what makes Southern society different? The Southern economy was agricultural rather than industrial. Because of this, the Southern economy relied on slave labor. Cash crops like tobacco and cotton were primarily grown, meaning the South relied heavily on trade. Now, to get a look at our Southern perspective, we ask in Mr. Beato. So, Mr. Beato, would you please join the news desk? Now, Mr. Beato, what makes the South so much better than the North?
We got the most profitable business in the entire country. We're making billions, literally billions of dollars on slavery.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. B.
Thank you for having me.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
This is really nice.
I've got something to tell you.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Breaking up. Breaking up. Breaking up is hard to do. She met you and liked your face. Now she really needs her space. You're done. You're done. You were 2 and now you're 1.
It's chocolate.
wild and wacky action bike is almost impossible to steer and to close in the dark. Gonna try to ride it all day long, but I'm gonna fail 'cause it's wild, wacky action and bang. You can't ride it, wild, wacky action bike. Wild wacky action bike comes with everything you see here.
Now, while the North and the South had rules for slavery, the West did not. This led to a lot of fighting on the topic. The fighting could only be resolved by compromise for now. Now, the first compromise was called the Missouri Compromise. The Missouri Compromise was the first solution. Missouri wanted to enter the Union as a slave state. Northerners proposed that Missouri can enter as a slave state, but Maine is also added as a free state, thus balancing the power between free and slave-owning states in the Senate. Also, no slavery would be allowed north of the 3630 parallel. This compromise delayed the debate on slavery, but for how long? The next time that America expanded, the debate over slave and free states erupted. The Missouri Compromise would no longer do. This time, California wished to enter as a free state, upsetting Southern leaders. The compromise allowed Western territories to vote for or against slavery, which was called popular sovereignty. This led to violence as pro- and anti-slavery groups fought over the vote. The Compromise of 1850 also had a new Fugitive Slave Act, which allowed Southerners to reclaim runaway slaves anywhere they went. Unfortunately, sectionalism helped cause the bloodiest war in U.S. history, but its story will not be forgotten, thanks to the help of 6 Minutes. I'm Tom Brokaw. Good night, America.